Are games art? That's a big question. Some games might be, but something like Call of Duty surely isn't. That's like saying McDonald's is Haute Cuisine. Yet, whether certain games are art or not is all up for debate. We can say that art inspired games. This inspiration is sometimes even very specific. Like Bob Ross, we will take you on a journey and tell you about 10 artists that inspired some of the greatest games. Katsushika Hokusai was born in 1760 and is a Japanese ukiyo-e artist who got inspired by Western design. He was a painter and printmaker during the Edo period. With his works, he broke free from traditional ukiyo-e works as he moved on towards painting landscapes. Some of his 30,000 works even reached European shores. His most famous work is The Great Wave, and it's this picture that inspired Clover Studios for the beautiful art of one of the greatest games of its time, Okami. Of course, other painters from the Edo period also inspired creators of the game, but the works of Hokusai are mentioned specifically. Thanks, Hokusai, because we still love the way Okami looks even though the game is already 10 years old. Gustav Klimt was born in the 19th century. He was an Austrian symbolist painter and one of the most prominent artists of his time. Even today, he's an inspiration to many, but his works were always slightly edgy, which didn't stroke well with the more conservative establishment. One of his most famous works is The Kiss. Patterns and embellishments often found in Klimt's works can also be found in a gorgeous game called Transistor. The art of Klimt shines through in this video game, not only in its design, but also its slightly erotic undertone. Perhaps we should also consider Transistor to be part of the Art Nouveau. Giorgio de Chirico was born in the late 19th century, but made art that inspired many through the ages. He's an Italian artist known for his surrealistic work. His paintings often involved a mix of empty cities, strange shadows, menacing statues, and a strange combination of everyday objects. One of his most famous works is, without a doubt, The Nostalgia of the Infinite. Does this painting remind you of a certain box art? Yes, it's almost like Aiko. The loneliness of the two characters in front of the tower is the same loneliness you feel when wandering through the game. It's a theme found in many of the painter's works, and Aiko creator Fumito Ueda has cited his entire collection as a source of inspiration for the beloved adventure.
Has news for the Empress, and we've come a long way.
A long way to bring bad news. The sailors say there's a curse on us.
Giovanni Antonio Canaletto was a painter during the 18th century. The Venice-born and raised painter was famous for his works on city portraits. He produced a mix of real and made-up city paintings, but it never was quite clear what was real and what wasn't. London and Venice were his main sources for inspiration.
I hope that one of the other
The works of Canaletto inspired Arcane Studios in its design of Dunwall, the main city from the stealth action game Dishonored. Comparing Dunwall with Canaletto's works sure shows some similarities. Walt Disney is the man behind Mickey Mouse and a pioneer in the world of animation. His main competitor in these early days was Max Fleischer, now known for Betty Boop and Popeye. The art style is often based around exaggerated features and big expressive eyes. In the early days of animation, there were no rules and stories were quite often dark. They were even used for war propaganda. The early works from Disney and Fleischer are the main inspiration for one of the most gorgeous shoot-'em-ups in recent years, Cuphead. Every animation in this game is handmade, and that really brings us back to times of Steamboat Willie and Coco the Clown. Games and anime have a close relationship. Not only are many Japanese game characters inspired from anime, the two media also fit very well into our geek culture. One of the biggest names in anime is Hayao Miyazaki. Known for Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro. His animation studio, Studio Ghibli, is known as the Disney from Japan. The studio worked together with Level 5 on the Ni no Kuni games and inspired a beloved indie game. Ori and the Blind Forest is one of the best platformers in recent years. The game is clearly based on Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, especially in its art style and the way it uses light. The fact that the game has a level called Valley of the Wind makes the connection even more apparent. You know Van Gogh and Rembrandt, but the Dutch also had MC Escher. During the 20th century, this artist made art that was very mathematical. He liked to play with a mix of order and chaos, mixing elements from Cubism, Expressionism, and Surrealism. Even if you don't know his name, you should be well aware of his works. He made those paintings with those weird stares like Relativity and of course Waterfall. It should come as no surprise that his work inspired some great puzzles. Think about Echochrome, for example, which plays with relativity a lot. The same can be said about Monument Valley, and then there's The Bridge, which might be the best example. Because this is not only the title of one of his works, but also that of a 2013 puzzle game clearly inspired by his bizarre sceneries.
Chris couldn't shake the feeling that things had taken a significant turn for the worse since
Piet Mondriaan was a painter and academic from the last 19th and early 20th century. His works follow different styles of modern art, but he's mostly famous for some very minimalistic works from the 1920s. Just some black-lined squares with red, yellow, or blue colors, his art inspired architecture among many other fields of design. Game designer Mark Bithell also saw Mondriaan as an inspiration for his debut game Thomas Was Alone. The simple design of this game and Mondriaan's later painting clearly back up his words. Thomas Was Alone surely is a masterpiece, also thanks to a fantastic narrator.
Chris was massively disappointed to run into the gang again. He'd enjoyed the alone time with his new girlfriend.
If you have ever visited Barcelona, you should have heard about Salvador Dali. He was a surrealist artist whose works can be seen even on the streets of the Spanish city. His most famous painting is without a doubt The Persistence of Memory. You know, the one with the melting clocks. Salvador Dali's surrealism didn't only influence art and architecture, he also made furniture, like the Mae West Slip sofa, and he designed the logo for the lollipop brand Chupa Chups. Hey, and guess what? His work is also the main inspiration for the video game Back to Bed. Even though we have to add that bedtime digital games also use some Escher inspiration for this one. Obviously.
What are those railroad tracks?
Eyes from these cold blue skies won't stay my worry, won't come or quell.
Vincent van Gogh is another Dutch painter, world famous for his post-impressionistic paintings. His most famous paintings are from the late 19th century and include Café Terrace at Night and The Starry Night, and of course his self-portrait. It's the way he used his brush that stands out the most, using short strokes to draw a complete picture. The same can be seen in the 2D art for the upcoming game, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. This game is about traveling, telling stories, and moving through history. Dim Bulb Games is planning to release this PC game this year. And there you have it, 10 artists that inspired even the most modern of games. Did we surprise you with this video, and did you like it? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to follow us on social media, as you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Discord. We hope to see you soon again on our next video. Do turn on those notifications after you are subscribed. See you next time!
They were doing really well. Claire hoped she could get them all across. John was fully aware he could do this alone. Thomas hoped he'd never have to.